Hey everyone, welcome back to Harry's Book Cafe. Grab a cup of coffee and let's talk about sci-fi. Today we're diving into a modern classic in the speculative fiction world, The Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. Before I go on, I just want to give a quick shout out to Alive3637 for recommending this book to me. As someone who doesn't read a ton of sci-fi, this book probably not gonna end up on my TBR otherwise. And honestly, that is the beauty of this book community. We get to read books outside our normal orbit. So thank you, friend, once again for recommending this book. Now, if you spend any time on BookTube or Goodreads, you probably heard people talk about Ted Chiang, like he's some sort of literary deity, and they will be right. The man has won Hugo's, Nebula's, and Locus Award. You name it, he's won it. So going into this collection, my expectations were pretty high. And now that I have just closed the back cover, my feelings, honestly, a little bit mixed. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed my time with these stories. Chiang has some of the coolest concept I have ever read. But as a full collection, I do think the book has some small issues that a lot of the reviewers tend to gloss over. Issues with pacing, structure, and readability for the average reader. So today I'm gonna break down all 8 stories, tell you what hit and what missed, and give you my honest summary of why this amazing collection might not be for everyone. Before we jump in, please make sure you hit the subscribe button if you like honest, unfiltered book reviews. Let's go. Let's go with the very first story, The Tower of Babylon. And honestly, what a way to start. I love this story. The concept takes the biblical myth of the Tower of Babel and treats it with mechanical realism. You follow a miner, as in mining, not a child. You follow a miner who is climbing this impossibly tall tower built to pierce the vault of heaven. What makes this work so well for me was the description of the ascent. Chiang's world building here is incredible. You feel the sheer length of the climb. You feel the air changes and how the sun looks differently, and how the culture of people living on the tower functions. And the ending is absolute perfection. It's deeply thought-provoking and completely flipped the topology of their universe on its head. Fascinating start. Next up is Division by Zero, which took a totally different approach. Now, normally the way that you can prove that one number equals any other number is if you secretly divide it by 0, all of them by 0. Which is why division by 0 is strictly mathematically illegal. It breaks the system. But in the story, the protagonist managed to discover an absolute proof that 1 equals 2 or any other number without breaking a single mathematical rule. Now, if you are not a math person, that sounds silly. But in the story, the discoverer shatters her entire worldview because it proves that mathematically is fundamentally inconsistent. I find this story really interesting because it really brings us to a famous debate in philosophy, and that is mathematical Platonism versus formalism. If math is Platonic, meaning that it's absolute truth built into the universe waiting for us to discover it, or is math just formalists, meaning that math is a language, almost like a game that we have invented ourselves to fit the nature. One argues that math already exists in nature, the other argues that we invented math to fit nature. Platonism versus formalism. In the story, if 1 equals 2, then the whole system crumbles. It is a quiet story, but it really makes you think. I absolutely love this one. Story number 3 is Understand. Now, this one was a bit of a mixed bag for me. It's about a man who suffered a brain damage and received experimental homotherapy and suddenly becomes this hyper-intelligent super genius. My initial reaction was, okay, this was clearly based on Flower of Algernon, which it was a book that I read a few years back and didn't particularly enjoy. So at first I was a little bit skeptical. But where Understand won me back was when it introduced a CIA element. which gives me a huge Firestarter vibe by Stephen King, and Firestarter is a book that I absolutely love. While I find it felt a bit derivative, the thriller ride aspect made up in the end. Then we come to story number 4, Story of Your Life. This was, without a shadow of doubt, my favorite story in the collection. Most of you probably know this story because it was adapted into the movie Arrival, which is brilliant, but reading it on the pages is a whole different experience. It focuses on a linguist trying to decipher an alien language from scratch after they landed on Earth. I was completely fascinated by how Chiang portrays initial translation. Think about it, how does anyone translate a language from scratch when there's zero shared history or context? How do you even figure out what verbs they use, or even if they use verbs at all? Chiang connects linguistic relativity, the idea that language you speak shapes how you see the world, with a non-linear view of time. It is beautifully written, emotionally resonant, and scientifically mind-bending. Just a masterpiece. Unfortunately, after my favorite story, we hit a bit of wall with 72 letters. The concept here is super cool. It's an alternate Victorian era where steampunk meets Jewish Kabbalah traditions. People use combinations of written letters on a piece of paper to give life to inanimate objects. However, I almost give up this story at the very beginning. I find it too sciencey and overly dense. It spent so much time on the technical nomenclature and the mechanics of fictional genetics that it loses all momentum. The story is a victim of an overly long exposition. The scenario is absolutely fascinating, but it reads like a textbook in the first half. Then we hit Evolution of Human Science. This is the shortest story in the book, only a few pages long, and honestly, it was the worst of the collection for me. It's written like a short article from an academic journal. In a future where super intelligent AI has rendered human scientific discovery obsolete, there are no real characters, no plot, and no emotional core. It feels less like a story and more like an extra page torn from a world-building notebook. Thankfully, things picked up with the story number 7, Hell is the Absence of God. This story has one of the wildest promises I have ever read anywhere. It takes place in a world where heaven, hell, and angels are indisputable physical fact of life. But here's the twist. The angelic visitations aren't peaceful experiences. They occur like the infrequent natural disasters, like tornadoes or severe storms, causing massive collateral damages, but also performing random miracles. What I love about this story is how it treats faith and religion in a world where the supernatural is demonstrably real. Like, if angels are real and you can see them, does it make faith easier or harder? If God's existence is proven, does it make devotion more meaningful or less? Chiang explores these questions through multiple characters with different relationship to faith, and it is genuinely thought-provoking. The ending is bleak in a way that really stuck with me. This is one of the strongest stories in the collection, in my opinion. Finally, we have Like What You See, a documentary. This story explores a technology called calignosia, a reversible brain procedure that prevents people from perceiving human physical beauty. The idea is to eliminate lookism and physical biases so that people are solely judged on their characters. Again, what a great concept. It really challenges how deeply we rely on appearance. But the issue here is execution. The entire story is written as a series of documentary interviews, and it just goes for far too long. Once you understand the core concept, the core debate after the first few interviews, the rest of the story starts to feel repetitive. So looking back, at the collection as a whole. I walk away thinking that Ted Chiang is unquestionably an incredible thinker. But as a reader, I ran into 3 challenges with this book that I think you should know before you pick it up. The first is that most of the stories in the collection are a little bit too long. Chiang gets so caught up in explaining the precise logical rules of his universes that the pacing takes a little bit of hit. Stories like 72 Letters and Like What You've Seen could have been cut 20 to 30% of their length, and the book will be better for it. Second, and this is my biggest critique, a lot of these stories feel like much ado with nothing. If you like fast-paced plots and twists and cinematic climax, you might be disappointed. Chiang is an idea-first writer. He sets up massive philosophical prompt, explore it quietly, and then the story just ends. There are rare big revelations or satisfying narrative payoffs. It's all about the thought experiment itself. I have to emphasize it here that this is purely my own opinion. A lot of people actually like this story style. And then the last challenge, and that is many of the story just gets too sciencey for the average reader. The sheer density of theoretical physics, linguistics, and formal logics means that you constantly have to slow down and reread paragraphs just to keep up with the mechanics. It can feel less like reading a cozy fiction book at a cafe and more like studying for exams. So what's my final verdicts? I give this collection a solid 4 out of 5 stars. It contains some of the most refreshing ideas that I don't come across very often. If you are someone who loves hard sci-fi, philosophical debate, and stories that make you pause reading and stare at the ceiling for 10 minutes just to think, then Stories of Your Life and Others is definitely the book for you. However, if you are not someone who reads a lot of sci-fis and wants to get into the genre, I don't think this collection is the starting point. For average readers, this is a little bit too sciencey, a little bit too long. But overall, what a great book. I absolutely enjoyed it. And thanks again for recommending this book. Truly, truly amazing collection. I really enjoyed it. And that is the end of this review, guys. I hope you liked it. If you do, please give it a thumb up, share it with a friend, and hit the subscribe button. And in the next week, I'll bring something entirely different. Until next time, guys, cheerio.